This is the wave, and somehow these days it feels like everyone is absolutely cracked at it. Well, everyone except me. I don't get how people are so good at wave. For context, my hardest wave level is Fairy Dust, which took me over 3,000 attempts. And here's the worst part. I beat it after I beat Cataclysm. So yeah, today I'm fixing my wave problem. I've constructed a 3-step plan to finally get better at wave and hopefully become a bit wave carried as well. And make sure you guys stick around because the last step I did nearly broke me. To start off, I decided to play the most famous wave level, 9 circles. Now, I already have beaten the level, so in order to make it more challenging, I decided to try and complete the wave 2 times in a row. The problem is it's been around 2 years since I last beat 9 circles. But apparently it did not matter because somehow I managed to beat the entire wave on my very first attempt. Wait, hold up, bro. We just first attempted that. Maybe I am wave carried already. Who knows? No, I'm not. You'll see later on. I'm definitely not. But unfortunately, doing the wave twice in a row would be a lot more difficult than I originally thought, as I pretty quickly died. Bro, no. So now I was back to the start again. But about 5 minutes after the last time we passed it, I managed to do it again. Okay, bro, we did it again. Okay. And now it was time for round 2. And this time I started at the ball to give myself a little bit of a build-up. But it did not really matter because I ended up dying at 50% anyways. What? So now back to the start again. But luckily, I was able to pass it really quickly. And I started my second run, and it looked like I was about to complete step 1 as I was getting really far into the wave. But unfortunately, I sold at 72%. Bro, oh my... What am I doing? But hey, at least that's a better percent than what I got on my school project, so it's all good here. But now I was locked in, and I passed the wave on my very next attempt. And going into round 2, I made this bet for some reason. Bro, if I don't beat it here, I'm gonna shave my eyebrows. But then I decided to start singing in the middle of the run, which was not very smart because this happened. Woo, woo, do, 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 na, 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 na. This helps me focus, guys, I swear. Bro, oh my gosh, I have to shave my eyebrows now. Just kidding, I am not gonna be shaving my eyebrows because I am not this guy. But right after this, I completed the wave on my first try again and was on to my second attempt. And guess what happened? I sold again. Bro, I'm so dumb. I swear, I'm so bad at choking levels, it always happens. But shortly after, we made it to my second run again, and I sold again, this time at 75%. I just love the wave. But this wasn't even as bad as my next fail, which was 80%. Literally the very end of the wave. I swear I'm not throwing for content, guys. But then finally, after getting rage baited by 9 circles for 30 minutes, I finally pulled off the first step to becoming a wave god. Yes, okay, we did it twice. We did it twice. But can we do it 3 times? That's the real question. Okay. So now you might be wondering what my next step is. Well, let me allow this Giga Chad to explain it to you. So that is step 1 complete. Now we're on to step 2, which is to beat the insane demon poltergeist. And this is gonna be the hardest wave level I've beaten. So this might take me a minute. So going into this, I didn't really think this level would be that bad because it's only an insane demon. But boy, was I wrong. I decided to start off with a practice run and the level starts off pretty chill. Like, I mean, really chill. It's probably like 6-star difficulty at the beginning. But then out of nowhere, it goes into this insane extreme demon difficulty wave. So yeah, basically, this is how the level goes. Super easy 6-star at the beginning, then about 10% of the hardest wave I've ever done, then like insane demon wave, and then it's pretty chill. You get a little break with some straight fly, some easy wave, and a slow cube section. And then you go right back into the wave, but it's honestly really easy again, until the very end when you have this very tight mini wave click, and also this really annoying cube click at the very end. But now that I played through it in practice, I decided to just start at the first wave since it's really the only difficult part of the level. And this made me realize just how bad I am at the wave. This was honestly the hardest wave gameplay I've ever played. In my opinion, it was even harder than the Cataclysm wave. I actually ended up quitting it after a little while and just started at the end because it was giving me so much trouble. But luckily, I was able to get the last 50% down pretty quickly, and it was time to practice the first wave again. And I was getting a bit frustrated to say the least. This is the worst insane demon. This might be the worst level I've ever played. Oh my gosh, I can't even, I genuinely cannot do this part. It's too many clicks, bro. I don't get how people are so good at wave. Dude, it's so hard. I cannot do this wave, bro. This is impossible. Oh my gosh, how? How the heck do you do this? So I decided to quit that part again, and I actually managed to get a run from 32 to 100, which was really good. That's nearly the entire level. There we go. 32 to 100, but we're still missing the like impossible part of the wave. But what I didn't manage to do yet was still get a good run on the first part of the wave, which was the impossible part. But after like an hour of practicing it and getting somewhat decent at it, I finally decided to start from runs from 0. And my first one is actually pretty decent, getting 28%. And not too long later, I actually managed to get a new best of 35%, passing the hardest part of the wave. Bro, 35! Yo, wait. And then shortly after, I would even get a little bit further at 37%. But from here, progress would honestly slow down quite a lot. So I did what any normal person would do and started watching Instagram Reels, because somehow I thought that would help. And believe it or not, it actually did help, because the first run I did after watching Reels, I managed to get an insane new best. I not only passed the first wave, but then I kept going, and I kept going some more, all the way to 84%. No, which was a fluke from 37. From here, I knew I could beat the level, but once again, my luck ran out, and I got no progress for about 45 minutes. I was even trying to get the Instagram Reels strategy again, but it just did not seem to work. But after a long time, I managed to finally get 87%, dying to the really tight mini wave click I was talking about earlier. But then shortly after, I died there again. Bro, it's so bad. That click is genuinely impossible, dude. And after this, I ended up quitting for the day because I was getting too frustrated. Dude, I'm so done. I literally cannot beat this, bro. I'm quitting. I'm not quitting, but I'm freaking playing this another day because, dude, this level is so awful. How many attempts? Bro, I already have like 1.5k attempts on this. This level is so bad. But the next day, I would return to it. And about 60 attempts in, I was finally about to beat it. But then I completely sold. What was I even thinking, bro? I was devastated because after that, there was only one more click left to beat the level. But it was all good because about 20 minutes later, this finally happened. Now it was time for one final challenge, and it ended up being so much harder than I originally thought it would be. Now, I'm not actually going to be beating the whole entire level because I am nowhere near that good. You guys just saw me fail poltergeist for 3 hours. But my goal is to beat the first wave all in one run, which is around 25% of the level and also the hardest part of the level as well. Now, some of you might be thinking, it's only 25% of the level. How hard can it really be? Well, let me tell you, as someone who beat Bloodbath, this is by far way harder than Bloodbath, and it's the hardest gameplay I've ever done by far. Just take a look at how tight some of these sections are. For example, the first 2 clicks are extremely tight. And then you also have the headbanger section, which is extremely difficult. And then you finally have this insanely tight mini wave click, which I actually found out later while editing this that it is a 60 FPS frame perfect. So yeah, that's really great. So after practicing the whole thing, I realized that this was not going to be an easy challenge. So to start off, I decided to practice the headbangers. And after about just 1 minute, I was actually able to get this section one time. Oh my gosh, wait, we did it. Then I decided to practice the next section, which actually wasn't too bad, except for this horrible frame perfect. This was absolutely so awful to try and get past, but after many and many fails, I finally passed it one single time. Oh my gosh, we did it! And after that, I also practiced the end, which really isn't too bad. It was just a lot of spam, but to be completely honest, I'm not the best at being very consistent with the spam. But from here, I decided to do some actual practice runs, with the first one being 48%, which is the frame perfect, all the way to the end of the wave. And I was actually able to get this pretty quickly. We did it! And then I decided to start a little bit earlier, and I was also able to get a run from 46 to the end. Yo, we did it! But now it was time to start the headbangers. And this is where things really got difficult. It was so hard because I had to combine this insanely difficult part with the super impossible frame perfect, which was just a recipe for disaster. But after about 20 minutes, I was finally able to complete this practice run. Yes! Oh my gosh, bro. That took like 1,000 attempts to get. But the problem was, I still had the entirety of the first part of the wave to learn, which in my opinion was a decent bit harder than the part I had just learned. So yeah, we might be cooked here. I started off with this dual mini wave, which actually wasn't too bad as it was just a little bit of memory. But then I went to the wave before it, and this part was horrible. This tiny little spike right here just made it so painstakingly difficult. And the click pattern here also just felt so awkward. Also, to get into this mini wave, it was a really difficult challenge as well. But after a while, I actually ended up getting this and I got kind of fed up. So I just decided to start from the beginning of the wave. And let me just say, these first two wave clicks are so terrible. I'm glad I'm not actually trying to beat Sonic Wave because this would be so awful. But after a little while, I was able to get a crazy new best of 4% on the first wave. I know, it's crazy. And shortly later, I made it to this mini wave click where I died. But this is not to be confused with the frame perfect. This is a different click, but it's just a tiny bit easier than that one. But after a few more attempts, I managed to pass this really difficult click and get 34%. And then later, I actually managed to get 36%, which is where I had left off in practice mode. Oh! 28 to 36. Okay. But after this, I would die at 36% literally 5 times before I made any sort of progress. And also, I need to take a minute to complain about this hitbox because it killed me so many times. And the dumbest thing is that it's literally invisible when you're playing the level. But eventually, after around an hour of no progress, I just decided to repractice the ending again to make sure that I had not forgotten it. And right after practicing that, I was able to get a new best of 38%. And now my goal was simple. I needed to make it to the headbanger section. And after about 30 minutes, I almost did, but I choked at 39%. No, dude, how did... And then it happened again. Bro, I'm so done. But finally, after way too many failures, I made it there, dying at 44%. Oh! Okay, dude, we made it. After this, I decided that was good enough for today, and I decided to pick it up the next day. On the next day, I decided to start off by going for 39 to the end, and it took me like 30 minutes, but I was able to do it. And now I just went back into normal mode to end this thing off once and for all. And after just a few attempts in normal mode, I already got 38%. After that, though, things were not going too well until suddenly I got a run that was so insane. I had made it back to the headbangers for the second time ever, and I somehow passed them. But now it was time for the frame perfect click, and I literally passed it on my first ever try. And then I passed the next wave, and now all I had to do to beat it was spam my way to victory. Dude, I just sold, so I clutched everything and then I sell on that. I had almost fluked the entire thing, but I sold at the very last click. I was absolutely devastated, and for the next 45 minutes, I would make 0 progress. I could not even make it back to the headbangers again. But eventually, after enough failure and way too many deaths, I would finally prove myself as a wave legend. Wait, we did it. Keep going, bro. Bro, we did it. Oh, dude, we just did it. So now let's answer the question you all have been waiting for. Am I wave carried? Well, the answer is no, absolutely not. Just the first wave of Sonic Wave took me 5,000 attempts to beat, which is only 1,000 less than it took me to beat Cataclysm. And also, Poltergeist took me like 3 hours to beat as well. But what I will say is I certainly have improved at the wave quite a lot. And while I may never be wave carried, at least I can say that I gave it my best shot.